Okay, so you've got the website up. So when we launch the website, it'll obviously be www.awth.com.au. So when you hit that website, you'll hit this landing page. There'll be a whole heap of information, providing some background information about what it does and how it does it, some of the key features and so forth. This is still a work in progress. So we're still basically populating some of these screens. But one thing I want to highlight is we'll have an FAQ page, which will have a lot of hopefully self-help Q&A stuff that will give users an opportunity to sort of answer some of the common questions that have been asked already about the platform and how it works in terms of data and ownership and functionality and all those sorts of things. We'll be adding in some video instruction guides as well that will give you some video demonstrations about how to use some of the functions if you have forgotten how to do it, or you're onboarding new people and want to train new people in how to control some of these functions. And in terms of onboarding, I guess there's two onboarding processes that we'll be adopting. So if a grower comes on here, they can self-onboard. So they can basically come to this screen rather, log in with their email address and password, create their own basically grower profile and we'll step them through the process of setting that all up. And part of that will be nominating who their selling agent is, and I'll show you how that works in a minute. And once they're onboarded, that's basically them set up, ready to go. For businesses like yourselves and exporter clients, like I said, because we need to get the data sharing agreement signed beforehand, we'll do that up front, and then it'll be AWTH people who basically help you set up your own business profile and set up all the controls and all that sort of stuff as well. So we'll basically step you through the process and handhold you a bit of the way so you understand how it all works and the main things you need to worry about maintaining moving forward. So if you want a copy of that data sharing agreement, I can send you a copy of it as well. It's in draft mode at the moment, but if you want to have a chance to review it beforehand, Simon, just let me know and I can send a copy through and you guys can have a look at what's in there and let us know if there's any points of contention or issues that you might want to sort out beforehand. So we'll log into the platform now. So you log in with a user code and password, and then you hit the landing page. So this is a landing page for a seller. I'll actually jump through and go to the grower first because it makes sense to start at the beginning. In terms of how the screen's laid out, so top left-hand that's left-hand of the screen, we have drop-down menus for different controls. In the top right-hand side is where all the admin stuff is. So where you set up your profiles and user credentials and so on. Stock standard screen, website design rather. There's a search function here as well, and then we've got this traceability timeline in the middle, and that's basically designed to replicate the traceability model that you get at Australia Post in terms of parcel tracking, with the touch points along from when the spec is created, tested, sold, dumped, and shipped. So that's a graphic of the domestic supply chain, and as each bale flows through those particular touch points, and this information gets updated along the way. Again, because we're a grower at the moment, there's a summary here about their clip production figures. Each user has a slightly different interface in terms of the information that's displayed here for a seller, or an exporter is slightly different. So I'll show you what that looks like in a minute. In terms of traceability, though, from a grower's side, there's 3 levels of, I guess, granularity that we're looking at. So obviously their overall clip, and then the mobs within that clip, and then the sale lots that come out of the mobs that go to auction. So if we look at their traceability data from a clips perspective, so this particular clip we've got set up here, nominated as an eSpeci user. We can then clip through and see information about that clip's production. So there's mob breakdowns, production and bales. Again, this is the test system, so there's not a lot of information in here, but you get an idea about what's going to be displayed and sort of what their yearly micron performance is, staple strength and so forth. Some ideas about what end uses their wool can be put to as well. And then we come back through the related data. So this is basically looking at the lines that have been pressed out from that clip, the bales under those, and then back to the mob level. So we can look at it 3 different levels. If we come back through then and look at mobs, so again, we look at the clip and the mob under that clip. So we get some more summary data about the mob production figures in terms of average bale weight, total production weight, um, cut per head, that sort of thing, and the measurements and so forth as well. And again, back to related data. So we look at the bales that have been pressed out for that mob, the species underneath them, and back to the clip as well.
Just on that, I'll just jump in. You only get mob and line data if you've done
The e-specie. Yeah,
in shed
e-specie.
specie.
Yeah.
Otherwise, this is coming in at lot level after testing. Um, that could be mitigated though in the future if we have an interface with your computer system that backfills that, because obviously you have to manually input manual species anyway, so they become digitized. So that could be populated if you wanted.
And then coming back through from the lot size. So again, once the sale lots have been lotted at your store and you decide which sale they're going to be sold in, and obviously the testing's been completed, then you get the opportunity, like I said, to share that information back down to your grower if you choose to. So in terms of what that looks like, again, if there's information there that's not being shared, this little information button pops up to say that there's some test results there that haven't been shared, to contact your seller to request access. So again, we don't get involved in that discussion between you and your grower clients. That's something for you guys and your business to run how you see fit. So we deliberately don't want to be involved in interactions with you and your growers. So looking at this first lot, for example, so this is just a normal sale lot that's come through. So here's where the traceability timeline comes into play, where we get to see when the specie was created, when it was tested, when it was sold, dumped, and shipped. Some other summary information about the sale lot, and then there's the test certificate data that appears down the bottom here for the core test and the staple length and strength. And again, on the related data side, so you can get to see the mobs that sale lot came from, the bales that are under the sale lot, and the e-species as well. So that's the functionality from a grower's perspective. If I come back through and show you how they set up their profile, not my profile, not their profile. So like I said, when a grower onboards themselves, part of the process is to add information about their business. They can put some promotional images and videos up if they want to. And then they come through, they need to set up their brands, and they can set up their users for their business as well. So if they've got classes or presses or roustabouts or whatever they want, they can have different access levels to the system. We can set them up in here. And here's where they set up their brands. So if they happen to be splitting their brands and selling, fleece through one seller and oddments through another or whatnot, they can do all that set up in here. So by defining their brand, they come through and set up the property identification code for that brand. So this is going to be mandatory for them to put in their pick, obviously, because we need that to trace back to source. Information about where they're located and so on. At the moment, we're not validating this pick ID, but we will do so as part of the phase 2 functionality because, in order to be able to match the data back with integrity, we need to make sure that the pick data is correct. We won't be pulling through the information about who it belongs to. We're basically just hitting an API, the MLA, and saying, is this pick data current and valid? And it'll send back an acknowledgement to say yes or no. From there, they go through and they set up details about their brand in terms of, clip size, wool type of wool, if they're using chemicals and all that sort of thing. And here's where they can send through then the connection for their selling agents. So here's where they nominate, say, Elders as their selling partner. You put in your account sale reference or something for that property, who the wool rep is. Lockie, for argument's sake, where the receiving store is going to be. So Gilman, and add that information in. And it'll send a connection request off to you guys. So when you log into the platform, and you'll also get an email to back this up, you'll get a request coming through to say, this particular grower has nominated Elders as being their selling agent on the Traceability Hub. Do you accept them as being your grower client? And then that you say yes, and then that'll create the connection between that grower and yourselves and allow for that sharing to take place. So that's what happens on the grower side. When we come through onto the seller side, obviously, given that you have so many customers that you need to support, doing the one by one onboarding that way is going to be totally cumbersome. So we have some tools in order to do that en masse, and I'll show you how that works when we get through to the seller profile. But if like I said, if the growers want to onboard and nominate their sellers themselves, they can do it through this functionality. As I said, another thing we're looking at doing is this validation of integrity schemes and sustainability platforms. So, in argument's sake, if they want to make a declaration about their a registered AWS client, as a case in point, they can put through their registration ID and add the information here, and it'll go into the platform as well. Again, at the moment, we're not validating these in the first cut, but part of that phase 2 functionality will be that these will be validated as well, so that information flows down the supply chain with confidence as well, because people know that the declarations that have been made are from current accredited growers, and that the information is current and authenticated. They can also put information about their resource management in terms of, carbon footprint and so forth, animal welfare, like I said, mules, non-mules, that sort of thing as well. And then here's where they connect through to WoolClip. So for those growers who are using WoolClip and have a subscription to the WoolClip platform, it basically allows them to send a request through to their own WoolClip platform and then authenticate it on that end. And that creates the connection between WoolClip and this platform so that the eSpecie data gets replicated in here automatically. So they don't have to worry about that either. They just set this up once, and then when they close off their eSpecies at the end of shearing, I think AWTH allows 72 hours, I think, once they're closed off before they lock away the data. And then that information will flow through the traceability hub. So we've got all that information that can go down the supply chain as well. So that's the functionality from a grower's perspective. So what I might do now is jump through to the buyer end, because it'll make a little bit more sense if I do that. So now looking at the landing page from a buyer's perspective. So again, they're basically just preoccupied with all their purchase, what's dumped and what's been shipped in the first instance. Again, from the traceability point of view, they're looking at the sale lots that they've purchased or the orders they're delivering. And again, from their profile side, if we have a look at the way that we set up their profile, they have the data sharing controls in there, which allows them to turn on or off the visibility of their export data going back down the supply chain. So that's where they can turn it on or off on a business level. And I'll show you also they can turn it on and off on an order level as well. And again, they come through here and they can set up who their users are, what level of access the users have, and all that sort of thing as well. So coming back to traceability, if we look at lot level first, so this is an export of looking at the lots that they've purchased. One thing I also want to touch on here, there's a search function in here, which is common to all the screens. So if I just want to have a look at MF floors for argument's sake, I can filter the screen by MF by a particular category. I can also come in here, there's a slider where you can put, date and time filters, wool sold, shipped and so forth filters as well. So there's ways and means that they can summarize the data or make it more efficient to find what they need to find. If I clear that. So coming back through to that sale lot we looked at the first instance from the grower's perspective. So this is looking at that same sale lot from an exporter's perspective. So again, there's the supply chain timeline as well. So we've got the same information flowing through because it's all been turned on through the seller, through to the buyer. So they get to see the same information that the grower sees. Summary of the order. And again, the combination certificate or the lot information for that certificate. And if it's put into a combination, what the combination details are as well. And again, the related data comes back and shows all the bales under that sale lot, and that's all they get to see. And then if we come through and look at it from the order side, so once they've built their orders up, they come through the delivery order process and the combination certificates, like I mentioned before. So you can look at that. Again, the traceability timeline now, let's just look at the order timeline. So when it was purchased, dumped, and shipped. The combination, the delivery details or the consignment details, the combination certificate that goes under it. And here's where they can turn on or off that sharing control for that individual order to go back down the supply chain as well. On the related data side, so they get to see all the individual sale lots that they put together for that delivery as well. And they can open those up and see the traceability timeline for each one of those sale lots as well. The other function that we're providing for them is this export to CSV, because we acknowledge that because this is a domestic supply chain model, they want to pass information down to their mill clients or brand partners and so forth downstream. So there's no way for them to plug in automatically to this platform at this point in time. So there's an export to CSV function that the exporters can use in order to provide that information to downstream partners as they see fit, which will include things like textiles exchange and textiles genesis and so forth when we start looking at that integrity scheme integration in phase 2 in December as well. So that's the buyer side. So now coming back to the sellers in the middle. So like I mentioned for you guys, basically on the traceability side, we're just looking at sale lots, and then there's the client list functionality as well. So like I said, there's a way of setting up your individual clients. So the way that works is you can add a client, assuming that that brand is already in the platform. So we call it, Lovely Banks or something or other. And here you can set up the controls. So again, their account sales reference, who their rep is, what store they're delivering to. And there's where the permission controls are turned on or off for that grower. We can actually share the information up and down the traceability hub, add them in. And that says, it's like I said, it sends a connection request through to that grower that says, elders have nominated you as being as you being a grower client to participate in the traceability hub. Do you accept? And then so they can accept from their point of view. Like I said, acknowledging that you've got so many growers on your books to worry about, doing this on a case-by-case basis is totally inefficient. So we're developing a tool at the moment for you to provide a list of all your grower clients from your bull system, and we'll just process that as a CSV file, and it'll do all the setup of these grower profiles in the background and send off those connection requests to each one of your grower clients, and hopefully onboard them that way, so that you can decide obviously what's in that list, whether you want to onboard all of them or some of them or none of them even for that matter, and have all that process happen automatically, so you don't actually have to do it on a grower by grower basis. And like I said, so once you've onboarded them, like I said, then everything turns green once they've accepted the connection on their end. And you can see that you can change these controls at any time. So you can turn them on and off for individual growers or individual brands. And also on an enterprise level for your business. So in terms of the traceability side, like I said, we'll come back. So we're looking at the sale lots in this instance. So again, the display is pretty much the same as we saw for the grower and the exporter. So this sale lot, again, we look at that, and then this traceability timeline, again, is the same all the way through in terms of what you get to see. The lot information, the test certificate, but the added functionality that you as a seller who own the lot get to do is, like I said, there's this control at lot level about turning on and off those data sharing tools. So again, you control the information up and down the supply chain on a lot by lot basis, as well as a brand or enterprise level. Again, related data, so you can come back and see the mobs that those sale lots are linked back to for your grower clients, and the bales that are under those sale lots, and even get the species that relate to them. And there's a function here to, again, this is a test system, so it takes a little while to populate, but you can see the information flowing back in terms of the species that the mobs that the species relate to, and all the bales that are under those species as well, and information about the production data as well. So the last thing I want to touch on is coming back to the start is the admin function for the EAD response. So as I mentioned earlier on, if there is an EAD outbreak, the chief vet will come to the traceability hub. This admin function is only available to 3 people within the organisation, so it's restricted in terms of who can pull information out in the first instance. So they'll contact us with a list of the PICs for affected properties and the date range over which that exposure's happened. And so like this, we'll plug those PICs into here and retrieve the information for the individual bale movements along the supply chain for those PICs, and send that information back to the chief vet. And then they'll analyse it and determine who they need to contact in terms of the seller, the buyer, the dump and so forth along the way, and make arrangements with those businesses directly about what that means in terms of what they want to do with the wool movements and treatments and quarantining and all that sort of stuff that's likely to come from it. So.